Let's get it rolling.
Good morning, Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you do.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the applause from the studio audience. I appreciate it very much. Oh, no! For those who are interested, and we'll get this out of the way really quickly, it's currently 30 degrees in the mid-Atlantic states in the secret lair of the legendary Tony Caravan, as the title card thumbnail details. And we might as well get into the
Weather Watch forecast.
And there it is. And what you can see here is water vapor just kind of going west to east across the U.S. Looks like there's something trying to come up from the South Pacific towards the Baja Peninsula and Mexico, South America. There's something big spinning. Something's afoot in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. Canada's got, I guess you're getting some snow up there, and it's probably still cold, though things are probably warm up a tad today. You might hit, 0 Celsius up there. I don't know. Here we're going to be around, as I said, we're already at close to zero. That's a good one. We're just a little bit under 0 Celsius. We're at 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to get up to about 39, almost 40 degrees today if the sun pops through. Chance of a thunderstorm later on today, which is going to cause wreak havoc, as they say, because there are snowbanks on my sidewalk that are unbelievable. But come Friday, the overnight is going to be -6 Fahrenheit. That's not Celsius. That's Fahrenheit. -6. So you can see, just look at your neck of the woods here on this. This is a current map. This is probably within the past hour from the NOAA CONUS satellite, low Earth orbit satellite. So what you're seeing is what it really kind of looks like out there, especially towards where it stops and then loops back. And you can expect, I guess, most people can expect rain, a little bit of rain today. I'd say most areas in the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, and it looks like heading towards parts of the Southwest, maybe the Carolinas, probably 1/10 of an inch, something along that line. But I'm no meteorologist. I just try to bring you these live maps just to show you that, these weather stations on TV, all this stuff is taxpayer funded, and the stuff they use, 90% of the stuff they talk about is given to them by government agencies.
The Weather Watch forecast.
Blammo, I'm back. So here I am. Here we are. Song stylings of one Tony Caravan. What a name. A name of fame. Fame is the name of the game. That's the legendary picture there. That you could actually get that on a shirt or a hoodie and a bag. I was taken on a rooftop of the former Yuengling, I guess you could almost call them an empire now, but at the Yuengling family home. It was a Tudor home that I lived in Pottsville, PA for, I don't know, about a year or so. I lived in the house. I was kind of the curator as they turned that into, it was donated to the Council for the Arts, and it eventually turned into an arts council. And then subsequently, it was a number of years later, well, actually when I came back after my LA trip, that I served on the board of directors of the Council for the Arts. And we used to meet in that building and have social functions and minor exhibits and stuff like that. It wasn't really a big place, but it was a classic Tudor home. Be that as it may, that picture was taken on the roof of that building. That's why I bring that up. He's a star, superstar. The morning show with the legendary Tony Caravan. Dollar bill in my pocket, and I think I used one to light that cigarette. Crazy times. Don't forget, we're going to make Virtual Cage a top 100 hit. Have you been listening to it on Spotify yet? Or how about some of the other ones? There's got to be some faves out there that you find. I'll tell you. I mean, look at my list here. Let's grab one of the CDs. The CD's no longer available, The Essential Beat Poetry of Tony Caravan. I don't think it is. I mean, we could look it up. Let's see. Let's just do this thing, right? Like Eddie Murphy says in that one movie. Let's do this thing. Let's go to Amazon. And let's look up The Essential Beat Poetry of Tony Caravan. And yeah, well, here I'll show you. Let me get to it. Display capture. It's live. It jumped through so many hoops. There it is. The Essential Beat Poetry of Tony Caravan. CDR. Artist, composer, audio CD, currently unavailable. Too bad. The editorial reviews. This compilation blends Tony C's poetry and critique of 21st century society, the dehumanization and deceptions of our time, with original music compositions ranging from retro beat generation, in quotation marks, upright bass to rock, rap, alternative to experimental arrangements. This is truly a solo record. All vocals, instrumentation, audio recording tracks were laid down and produced by the artist himself. Tony Caravan is also an author of 7 books. Well, now it's 10 books. Countless articles, screenplays, and many more songs. He has worked in radio, publishing, film, music, advertising, graphic design, business, education, and the internet. He is semi-retired, semi-self-sufficient, and lives in a small house with his guitars, a backyard garden, and a pond. And, of course, a black cat. Yeah. You know, these companies, they love to discontinue things. You know, it's really weird. Don't ask me why it does that weird thing. But anyway, I got 2 copies of them. I don't know if anybody else bought it. But the track list on the back. The Lies We Ignore, Identity Crisis, What People Don't See, Game Over. That could be a hit. Autopilot, Driving Down the Road. It's a mellow song, but it's really cool. Driving down the road with a 6-pack and the radio on. Bigger Than Dat. That's a cool tune. That song got airplay in New York and L.A. I think KCRW in Santa Monica played that song. Robots, Breakaway Civilization, Bureaucrats, Everything You Know Is Wrong, Mini Digi Culture, Happy Nightmares, the live version. On Advertising and Design, The Weather, Worst Christmas Hanukkah, live version. Truly collector's item. I only have 2 copies. I have 2 copies here. I don't know. I guess the value of them is around $100, $100, $200. I don't know. Hey Trey, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Welcome to the show that never ends. Trey from Philadelphia. So, here we are. Virtual cage. Well, let me get that off the screen. And something else up. Put something else up there today. No, I didn't. I went out early, first thing in the morning today. You know, just to get the show started.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And I told that story yesterday where I went outside, rushed downstairs. I was just feeling great, fantastic, laying back in bed. It was just one of those, oh man, isn't life beautiful? I could just lay here for another half hour and, you know, this is nirvana. And anyway, I realized, oh no, I left the garbage on the front porch because, you know, the wind was blowing and all that crap. I told this story yesterday, but I'm retelling it. So anyway, I rushed down and put the garbage out, and it turns out they didn't collect garbage yesterday because the snow was all pushed up by the plows because we got well over a foot here, well over a foot. Anyway, so this morning I got up, I had the same feeling. I had a pretty good night's sleep, and so but this time I just eased myself up because the garbage was already there. But when I came downstairs, I did go out, and I see they plowed over. So I cleaned that. And then my witch of a neighbor, I have a neighbor who's actually like, I knew a coven of witches when I was in LA, but they were good witches. We're good witches. They were good witches. Okay. Well, this is the classic witch. I have a picture of her somewhere. I mean, she's really like she's like the Wicked Witch of the West, but like bent over and like, she's really witch. I think she poisoned me. I think that's the root of my problems. Like a lot of the health issues I've had. I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, really. And so she got somebody with the snowblower to like, I have like a double wide sidewalk, right? She got somebody with the snowblower and they snowblowed and cleared her sidewalk off totally, completely. And it's like there's this bump and it ends like even before, just right before it gets to my sidewalk. Of course, my sidewalk's this wide, which I had to shovel out myself, trying to shovel up this thick over a foot of snow and with drifts and all that crazy stuff. Who cares? I don't know. All I know is that it was nonsense.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
All right, let's get the show on the road. So, unless anybody else has anything to say, the thing about it is, you know, and I was looking at this, I'm trying this thing up top. And like a lot of people don't understand what this is it's a picture of, this is camera 2, and I'm going to create this. I forgot. Bear with me. You know, every show I do something like this, and I guess people get kind of annoyed. Camera 2. What I'm doing is I'm always coming up with ideas. Camera 2 view. All right. And I need this to be tiny as hell. So let's take it down to, make it condensed bold and see what happens at 9 point. Where is it? I don't even see it. Do you see the word camera 2 anywhere? It just completely disappear. Select font, 12 point. It's got to be out here somewhere. It should be. Ah, here it is. This is an interesting to note that this is camera 2. That in effect, these screens, when you're dealing with like a 1920 by 1080p situation, that that tiny little thing that you actually have to name this, make the font. Yeah, see that? You have to actually make this font, or it's blurry if you enlarged it. That was just being annoying to me because you could see the blur of it up there. Okay, we got rid of that. Camera 2 does not have to be... I just had a wheeze. Doesn't have to, only has to be above my video thing. Okay, we'll get into the show now. Sorry, folks. Sorry for the delay. I also did that. I did some extra research on my blood test that I had yesterday because I thought the protein in the MPV was high. And it turns out that, like Cedars-Sinai, the number I had, which was like 1 above on the MPV thing, is within the range at some labs and at like Cedars-Sinai. So I take that as like just I'm on the upper scale of the range instead of being one point over. And it was the same with the protein. So, it's interesting. So, but those were the only two things in my blood work that were high, apart from this other thing, like some genetic thing that I've had, there's it's not worth getting into because people wouldn't understand it. But, in other words, all my blood work, the full metabolic panel, whatever, the whole 9 yards, everything was okay. So I guess this diet that I'm consuming right now is, holding the barbarians off at the gate. And I also did some research for people who have been following along with this. And it's not so much bile salts. That bile salts are good for you and, for liver health. And we're not going to talk about this today. This is not the topic of the show, so bear with me. But there's something called litholytic bile acids, UDCA version. There's another version. And there's like a cholestyramine. And in 2 different studies, these papers, and this is where we are going to go. Continuation of some of the earlier shows, how the internet is broken and how how everything's working against you, and Big Pharma is really in control of everything now, just about. Well, there was a study, I believe, one was in 1991. Another one was a study in Iceland in either 2013 or 2015. In fact, I had to translate. Google Translations is really good. So I found a medical journal paper from Iceland, a study they did. And I had to translate it because it was in Icelandic. And the Google translation thing, I mean, it must have taken 10, 15 seconds, something like that. And it translated the entire PDF document. But this one going back to 1991, and I also checked it. This was on the National Institute of Health website, 1991. So you have to think about, this would have been people coming out. This would have been bureaucrats who were in there probably from the 80s. Okay, this is before Big Pharma really got a major stranglehold on things. Okay, I mean, they've always been there. Take Somanex tonight and sleep. All that stuff, Doan's pills, and all the scandals of the pharmaceutical companies and TV, and how they were one of them and the soap companies. That's why they call them soap operas. But it was pharmaceuticals and soap companies that basically were kind of the first ones tied in with the early ad agencies to use those propaganda techniques that they brought over from the guy with the skinny mustache, right? His cronies, And they used those techniques on the unsuspecting American public in the late 50s and 60s when TV, black and white TV, and they started putting programming on shows. But when you flash forward, they didn't become a presence with major lobby power influence where, the corporatocracy didn't really take over until the 90s when things got out of control. Because you have to remember, Dow Jones Industrial was only at around 5,000. Let's just take a quick look at this just for the hell of it. This is, and like I said, I don't want to talk off the top of my head. I hate doing that. Dow Jones average in 1991. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, wait do you see this? This is ridiculous. Let me get up here. Look at this. Dow Jones average 1991 was only 29.29. Just think about that. It's like 10. It's over 10 times that now. 10 times, right? So the corporatocracy simply did not exist in the early 90s. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, so the National Institute of Health, the NIH, that thing with the guy with the F, the guy who's really got us in this, fucking mess that we've been in for the past couple of years, right? He's not only probably responsible for it, but he's profiting from it, and he's forcing it to continue on us, if you know what I mean and know what I'm talking about. Well, anyway, I found a paper from back in 1991 that is still on there because I told you the same happens with the CDC. In their archives, if you know how to dig, you can find, papers that were written way back are still there. So that's why I always say they're contradicting themselves constantly. So their new political appointee heads and stuff come out and parade on stage and do the Sunday shows and all this stuff, but they're contradicting the stuff that's on their website. It's the same with like causes of death and stuff, which we've gone over thousands of times, not thousands, but hundreds of times on this show. Well, I found this NIH paper from back in 1991 that was dealing with gallstones, okay? And it was a very intense study, and it was a very detailed paper. And what happened was they found out that this UDCA litholytic bile acids not only cured the problem, but shrunk the stones. Dissolved the stones was the terminology they used. And the last sentence, in the conclusion, right, conclusion of the paper, I think I could read it to you. I'm being strangled by my own headphones. I have the paper here. Where is it? What did I do with the darn thing? Oh. Yeah. Dietary, just for the sake of you seeing, see that? NIH, National Institute of Health. This was the National Library of Medicine. This is in their library. You could see the title there. Treatment of cholesterol gallstones with litholytic bile acids, okay? And so in this abstract, which ends up being the conclusion of the report, all right, dietary restrictions can be relaxed as the stones dissolve. That's the last sentence. Can you believe that? 1991, that's 31 years ago. Approximately, basically 30 years ago. I don't know what month it was issued. I didn't notice that. 30 years ago. As the stones dissolve. That's the same as these things, like 2 years ago, these antivirals, like that one. I'm not going to get into mentioning things because actually quite off the top of my head, I forget which one it was. And it doesn't matter. Don't put it in. That'll get us knocked off. But the one that people were using for lupus and for malaria and stuff, they knew about 2 years ago that was an antiviral. And then now Pfizer apparently is like kind of rearranging the molecular structure of it so they can patent it, because that drug was in generic form, which means you basically could get those pills. And this isn't that goofy one that Rogan, part of the kitchen thing. This was before Rogan, right? A lot of people that's already out of the public consciousness. They forgot that. That was the one they hid right at the outset that could have like nipped this thing in the bud like 2 years ago. And like I say all the time, all you have to do is turn on your television set and watch these lawsuits against these pharmaceutical companies for various other drugs. Anyone who doesn't think that we're being lied to, everything is wrong, and you don't know what you don't know, and Big Pharma, is like a powerhouse in the corporatocracy as far as their influence over media and, what was once a political structure, but now it's a corporatocracy. Anyone who doesn't conceive that, believe it, understand it, or even will even entertain the idea of it is basically in total denial, has cognitive dissonance, or otherwise, I guess you would say,
This is insane.
yeah, you're frickin' insane. Oh yeah, you're frickin' insane.
This is insane.
So anyway, I got to get me hands on some of that letholic, whatever the heck it is. So I had an appointment with my surgeon because my PSA numbers for my prostate cancer that I had came out, everything's okay, right? So, every 6 months you have to be checked to see if it's coming back. Well, the numbers, it's not so far so good, right? Knock on wood. So I just got those numbers back, and they were good. But that's a Johns Hopkins surgeon, so I trust that guy a lot, and I wanted to talk to him. I had an appointment with him Friday, and he just postponed it into February. I guess he saw the numbers and figures, well, or I don't know, or the weather's bad. I mean, the weather is bad, and they're talking about it's going to be bad here for at least 2 weeks where I'm at. And today there's supposedly going to be some kind of thunderstorm or something in the afternoon, but I'm telling you, the snow is so thick, and I kicked myself. I was outside today because I was trying to make sure the trash bags that I put out yesterday weren't covered over with snow, which they were. So I had to make sure they're available. And I'm assuming the garbage men are going to come today. They better. But I was out there, and I should have taken a smartphone with me to show you that fortress that the plows have pushed in. The street's black. I mean, the streets are perfectly clean. It's just that they pushed everything on everybody's sidewalks. Except for the fortunate ones who had the snowblower, like my witch of a neighbor, who basically, Anyway, neither here nor there. And then on the other side, the doctor's office, they plowed open their parking lot, which is next to my house. And of course, part of the plow blocked my sidewalk. But I went to my regular doctor on Monday. That's how I got these blood results. And I got her to give me a paper to get me out of jury duty, which I was scheduled for in the 2nd of February or something. So that was a good thing too. So all in all, everything's fine. And I seem to be on this diet that I'm eating that, like I say, knock on wood, is keeping, the barbarians at the gate. But I really would like to get a hold of this stuff. The problem is the gastrointestinologists around here, whatever the fuck you call them, I think I've already encountered the crew, because when, it's a long story, and I don't want to waste the whole show on this. But when I was in the hospital having something else dealt with, they were wandering around, and they were they wanted to take my gallbladder out then. And I wasn't even in for that. I was in for like cancer surgery or something. So I'm not even going to that crew because they're part of the cut. And that's the thing. In a lot of these papers, it's written, they put that down, most doctors just advise cut it out. If you didn't see yesterday's show, it's you should watch the part at least where I talk about the importance of the gallbladder. It's not it's a key. It's not like an appendix type of thing. Even the appendix has a use. People say, "Oh, these are useless things. You can take them out." Well, the gallbladder deals with your thyroid gland. It basically recycles bile, helps recycle bile. It releases bile at the right time to basically get vitamin A, D, E, and K out that are fat soluble, right? It affects your pancreas, could cause pancreatitis, pancreatic cancer, I mean, it is a big deal, and it releases this stuff into the small intestine, and that, and then ultimately, you have bioavailability of these certain vitamins. It's like a major function. It's the place where bile's stored. So when you eat consume these fats and these vitamins, it's the instrument that then it contracts, which kind of squirts out into these various ducts, and that's how you get, yeah, it's like you don't want that thing taken out, man, unless it's some like crazy ass situation. And yet they're going out, and the first moment of inflammation or a problem is like, take it out, And meanwhile, back in 1991, and this is the point I'm trying to get at, is that, and this isn't the only thing, the only one. You have to do a deep dive. Too many people use Google search, and it's like, the problem is Google. You have to get back to the concept of websites. I don't know who else was saying this. Somebody else. Yeah. They have this thing about turmeric that's responding to Trey on the chat, is the bile salts you need to dissolve gallstones or ox bile. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I've read, and it comes up, and I do the onions and beets, and I'm doing some turmeric, but the thing about turmeric is there are, for as many papers touting the benefits of turmeric, and I even asked my physician about it specifically, she said, well, do it in moderation, because there are, for every paper that says turmeric is good, and it is a good anti-inflammatory, I've been living off this stuff for the past 5 years, to tell you the truth, keeping me without having any inflammation. But as even connections with turmeric and this thing, and I was sent a paper, unfortunately it's out in that garbage that we were talking about. Somebody else sent me a paper, an actual medical paper, touting the benefits of turmeric for this thing that's going around that they won't let die. But that for as many papers dealing with the benefits for gallstones and gallbladder health, there's papers that say it's bad for it too, right? And there are also papers that deal with the salts, and it's getting the right ones. The point of the matter is, I'm in a situation where I need dissolving. I don't need gallbladder health. I don't need liver health. I just got my blood results back, and they're fine. Okay, I'm functioning within the range of normal levels across the board. Everything from calcium to to minerals to bodily functions, blood, composition of the blood, the whole 9 yards. And so my main focus at this point is to literally dissolve. I don't want to pass them. See, that's the problem with these cleanses. you know, is that they have these things that will cleanse or force these things through. But if they get stuck in one of these ducts, that's when you have to get then you're in your body's in a crisis mode, and you'll literally have to have your gallbladder removed. They'll have to perform surgery. And once they're in there doing a surgery, they're not going to let's see if we can just get this out of there. You know what I mean? It's a different, So it's kind of it's fucked up. Yeah, turmeric is one of the best antivirals known to man. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's great. And it's ancient. The Chinese used it. The Sumerians. I mean, it just goes. It's back in recorded. Indians use it. The real Indians, from India. It's like neem, If you know any real, I used to know a guy. If you know guys who came from India, like first geners. I used to know a guy when I was living down in Florida for a while. I used to talk to him on a daily basis because he owned a convenience store and he sold lottery tickets, and I used to go down there and buy lottery tickets. I won like $90 once on scratch offs. I used to always win at his place. I don't know why. I was always ahead of the game. It was like I'd go down there and he sold beer too. So, because it's Florida. So it was like I'd go down there, I'd buy some rub-offs, I'd just rap with the guy. It was earlier in the morning, nobody else was coming in the store. And I'd win, and I'd buy, and I'd take home a 6-pack or a 12-pack. Hey, it was Florida. I was living on the Gulf Coast. It was sunny practically every day. And it was a good time. But he used to talk to me. They refer to the neem tree, which is common in as the local pharmacy. The tree is the local pharmacy. And apparently, I don't know if you caught this story. This is another one that they swooped down. So apparently a guy had figured out, was taking neem leaves, making a tea. I think he was adding 1 or 2 other herbs, right? And and all these people were coming in with the thing, right? And he was curing them. And the government, I guess from pressure from Big Pharma, Big Pharma International, WHO type of people or something, they swooped down and took all of his stuff, which was really nothing much than a couple of large kettles, in a shed type of thing where he was boiling, because there were so many people coming to this tiny small town to get cured for this thing, for the thing that's floating around, that he had to make bigger batches of this tea. And I noticed that there were just piles and piles of leaves, and it was under a neem tree. Yeah. The stuff you don't know, everything you know is wrong, man. And you don't know what you don't know. And they're keeping it away from us, man. And it sucks. So, yeah, cleanses are no good because, I don't want to push anything through and get blockage. But, I got to dissolve them. I'll have to look into this Oxfile thing, a little bit further. But I want them dissolved, dissolved. See, I went through because I had a problem with kidney stones. I had a couple kidney minor operations. They were procedures really. Because I had a big stone lodged in my kidney that was there my whole life or something. And it was discovered once in some MRI or something I was getting checked out for. And they said, if that thing dislodges or breaks up or something, it could get caught in one of those, I guess, urinary tract ducts. Or I had pain. But whatever the case may be, the idea was, you want to dissolve, And they ended up going in and not nuking it, but I mean magnetic, that thing where they blast it, sonic blast the thing. And there was a time when they were using these types of techniques on gallstones, right? But this goes back to like the 50s and stuff. You know, we think we have modern medicine, but it's 60 years on, we're ignoring things. And like I say, in this example, 30 years ago, they were talking about dissolving them, you know, and just going back to normal, right? Because see, the thing is, one of the contributors to this, it's not like I don't have diabetes, and my blood work showed that I don't have that problem. It's just my genetic makeup. I don't have, and I had gained a lot of weight and I lost a lot of weight over a relatively short period of time. And one of the things, the contributors, like there's like 3 major contributors to gallstones, and one of them is to lose a lot of weight fast. And so however that forms, does this, that, the other, I don't know the specific science of it. I don't really care. But it's probably these could have been sitting in there for a couple of years, because I took that weight off about 3 years ago. So 3 to 5 years ago was around the time when I took off a bunch of weight. Because I bought this house it could have even been 6. Bought this house about 6 years ago or something like that. Somewhere in that time frame. It's become a blur now. But whatever the case may be, I forget exactly the point I was trying to make there, but this classic photo. I only put this up because I didn't know what else to put up. I think I may or may not have used this once last year, but whatever. It's available on a shirt. I got one. It's on a bag, too. If you look at my ending credits there, it's on the bag. But anyway, pretty comical. Tony Caravan in the old days. So anyway, enough of that kind of crap. The main idea here is that Big Pharma's fucking with us, and that sucks. And so, I don't want to have to deal with it. So this diet, I'm eating a high fiber diet, pretty much low fat. It's not like no fat. You can't escape fats. And you can't escape sugars. If you read the label of stuff, see, that's the thing, process and no processed foods, but everything's processed. So if you buy it in a box, it's processed. I just gave 2 boxes of cereal today. The other day, I bought 2 boxes of cereal that were oats, whole grain oats, right? And almost generic, got them from I ordered them. I made the mistake. Like yesterday, I physically walked to the grocery store. I put on my snow hiking boots and walked the street down to the grocery store so I could actually buy some things I needed. And I took my magnifying glass. You think these are my reading glasses. I took the next level up, 200, magnification ones so I could read these labels, because they just get smaller and smaller when they want to really mess with you. But when you order stuff for delivery, which I do at least once a month, probably twice a month, because why not? Especially as like a case of water or something like that. I'm trying to drink a lot of liquids, a lot of water. Well, anyway, so you look at the picture when you're ordering online, and it's oats, whole grain, because you want whole. See, you don't. People make the mistake of ordering like whole flour or brown things that are like whole grain flour or something like that. What is the term? I'm trying to think of it. Damn it. It's got to be whole grain. Put it that way. All right, whole grain. Well, anyway, so this one said whole grain oats on the front, but when I got the box and I looked at the side, there were all these additives in there. There were added sugars, there was saturated fats and monosaturated and this, that. I'm going like, come on, it's a box of fucking cereal. And I bought a big thing of oats, but it wasn't Quaker oats, right? And I'm looking on the side of that, and there's extra stuff in that. So I got to go back to the grocery store and just get back to buying, old-fashioned oats. You want the ingredients to be just oats. That's it, oats. And whatever you eat, I found a cracker that's like a whole grain cracker. It's got nothing in it. There's no carbs. I mean, there's some carbs, but I mean, there's no fats, no added sugars, none of that stuff. It's just, whole grain, whatever. So that's what I've been eating. And I've been eating salads, greens, tomatoes, all that stuff you can eat. Bitter things are good for it. So I've been putting artichokes and stuff like that in. Apple cider vinegar, supposedly like an old-fashioned dissolver. Lemon juice and stuff like that. That works, right? And I've been using raw to neutralize so things don't taste like too crazy. I've used honey. I use raw. Not raw honey's not enough. I was buying raw honey for a while from a verified beekeeper. That's important too, because you got to watch it. They can say it's pure or something, and the FDA lies. Okay, they lie. But you want raw, unfiltered honey from a certified, not certified, because who's got the right to certify anything, right? What you have to do is research and make sure that the person exists. And this is what I was talking about, and this is where the show's heading now that we're out of this thing, okay? We're done with that, all right? So let's just get back into something here. So
Brilliant!
yeah, something to break up the action. Websites. We have to get back to websites. And I don't know who else was saying this, but somebody was saying it too. I've been saying it for all along. Google search is broken. You can't believe it. Search in general is broken. Let's clarify that. I mean, if you ask Siri some question, who cares what the source that one of these bots, algorithmic AI bots are coming from? The point of the matter is search is broken. Wikipedia is not an encyclopedia, okay? It's just like some kind of propagandist tool. They change, the descriptions change. I was watching something, that guy from Veritas or something, or that guy who got beat up in the Pacific Northwest, that talking too much. Did I say it was 4:47 a.m. in the morning on the 19th of January? That guy, Andy, the journalist who got beat up in the Northwest, he used to just mainly cover the Northwest, and particularly during the riots back in 2020. He got beat up and stuff like that. And he's been defamed, all right, because he's reported on all these groups that were responsible for causing all the riots and the damage. Well, apparently, they've changed they've written lies about him, and it's on his on the Wikipedia page under his name. So someone goes to find out who is this dude, and they read this thing, and it's a lie. So Wikipedia, forget it. If you're curious about something, go to Encyclopedia Britannica. We did it once on this show a couple of days ago, maybe last week. And as far as search is concerned, forget it. All right? You could use the search to find, the URL of a website if you don't know it. All right? So that would be about the only benefit. There's two benefits for search in the year 2022. One would be, like I've said before, if you're looking for Joe's Garage, you're looking for a place to get your brakes fixed in Poughkeepsie, okay? And you'll probably get places that it's probably pay to play, so you might get somebody who's advertising, but at least it'll connect you to a website. And along the same lines, but in a different vein, is if you're just looking for a specific website. So if you want to find the website for the National Institute of Health and you don't know that it's nih.gov or whatever the heck it is, I'm not sure, you can use search for that. But go to a website if you want information, right? Because search is broken across the board. Wikipedia is just not trustworthy. All right, think about that. This is the information age, 2022, right? And big pharma, you turn on any TV station and there's some lawsuit against the pharmaceutical company for some drug that the FDA approved. And this is 2020. And there's people here, and I still have this on here because I had it on from yesterday. I guess I'm going to keep, there's two things we're going to keep alive. One, this idea that the media and the politicians are marionettes. I'm not going to get rid of this. You're going to see this, if I'm still doing this in the fall of this year, you're going to see this slide. This slide is not going away, man, because I'm going to jackhammer this down to people. Don't realize it. That girl, all right, is the corporatocracy. And the smaller girl is you, all right, the news junkies, all right, and the people that are controlled by the corporatocracy, all right. But what I wanted to show was this. Look at these people. What are they doing? This is 2022. This was just a few days ago. I mean, it looks like a flashback to a couple of years ago. What are they hoping to save America? There is no America anymore. All right? What do they think? This is, this is like, And again, that's not because of their political leanings, their party, or even the guy who's giving the speech. All right? Because this is the same for all sides, just as the other side can't draw crowds like that. But the point is, both sides, they're just marionettes. All right? I mean, CNN lost 90-some% of its viewership this year. 90-some%. There's like nobody watching it. The only place it is like they pay to be in airports and like hotel lobbies and stuff. So that's like who's watching CNN and some news junkies. Remember, there's 330 million people in the country. If 1 million people watched CNN, okay, I heard certain day parts, according to the ratings, the official ratings, they only get 100,000 viewers. But if 1 million people watch them, that would be less than 1/3 of 1% of the American people. Less than 1/3 of 1% of the American people. Put a different way, 99.6+% of the American people are not watching CNN. And the same goes for MSNBC, even Fox. Joe Rogan gets more views, all right, on average, than Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and these various other cable stations combined. He gets more views than them combined. And apparently now they're going after Rogan because they can't have this guy who could just say whatever he wants to. Right? Free speech, It's crazy, man. And so the corporatocracy, that's it. That's the government we live in, and going forward, that's how we live. So you got to get this through your head, and you have to understand that. And if you want to have a quality of life, it's up to you. Save yourself. In other words, forget about this save America. All right? Save yourself. If enough people save themselves, then yeah, America will be saved, I guess, in effect. But you could just say goodbye to the big cities and stuff like that. Forget about that. Every dystopian movie you've ever seen about the future pretty much is kind of either happening right now or will happen within the next 18 months or so. There's no going back from this. The thing is, you can't. That's one thing. You can't travel back in time. You could travel forward in time. That's a whole different show. You know, I've proven that. Time's not linear. Time is more circular. And so, in other words, the past is the past is the future. You see, but that's like I say, that's a whole different story. I'll just show you the picture real quick again for those who've missed that one. I've yet to make a formal graphic of this one. This just gives you an idea. Forget about linear time, past to the future. Think of the clock-looking thing down the bottom, and an XY axis, and also separate space. There's no such thing as Einstein space-time. It's space and time. Okay, there is no space-time. They're not connected. The idea is, the example they always give is like this indentation, right, on this kind of like this matrix. Not like the Matrix, like the movie, but a matrix, like a bunch of lines all crisscrossing each other. And there's like this hole, and that's supposedly gravity, and then like things, right? But the thing is, I always say, okay, so you in other words, you're talking like a bowling ball thrown on top of a mattress or some kind of, and I always say, well, the flaw in your system is what's underneath. What happens underneath? You see? They're not thinking. That's the fifth dimension. See, when you separate space and time, that gives you 4 dimensions, okay? But when you look at the flaw in Einstein's E equals mc squared and his whole concept of relativity and gravity and space-time connected together is that the indentation leaves a bulge down at the bottom. So nothing is going to be drawn into a bulge. It's going to be, right? So that can only be described in a 5th dimension, which people haven't figured out. There's a paper coming out in the February 22nd, 22. So 2222, right? 2/22/22. And if you want to find out who the guy who's releasing it was interviewed by a woman named Doctor. She's a medical doctor. She's been practicing, medicine for like 20 some years. Real blonde, attractive woman. She's interviewed this guy on numerous occasions. Check her out, Dr. Beth. If you do a search for Dr. Beth, and try to find the one where they talk about this paper that this guy's releasing. It's going to turn modern physics on its head. So in any event, so you can't trust anything. So trust yourself and trust the people you know. And and all you have to do is look around and do some research and go. If you really want information, find websites. Everybody and their brother has a website now, practically, And don't be afraid of like the so-called powers that be. Like I have some of my websites on Google Sites, right? So it's like, I'm sleeping with the enemy. Well, not really. I mean, they're providing the space, so why not? They're not altering anything on my website, right? See, keep your enemies closer, right? Remember that line? Like I always say, all these old adages and stuff are really, you take to heart. Yeah, keep your enemies closer. So build a website on Google Sites. It's free, all right? And because it's on Google, it's going to appear, people are going to be able to find it. All right. But make a website, even if it's just a page, That's where I moved a couple of mine. I still have my own server, though, just in case. It's a pain that I have to pay 4 times a year, the fees to keep these things alive. But I've had that server for almost 25 years. And so it's a co-located, thing. They call it colo. But it's my server and my files are on there, and it's been and I've had that stuff there for 25 years. And so it would literally take me a very long time to sift through and, I mean, I have everything backed up because I have terabyte after terabyte of hard storage here. And, nowadays, even my computer myself, this computer I'm talking through right now, which isn't the newest computer out there because we won't accept the latest operating system. I've got the next to the latest. But it's not good enough. They want me to buy a new computer, which I'm not. But it has 2 terabytes on it of storage. And part of it's solid state, but not all. This was right as they were switching to solid state. Now you can get, X amount of terabytes all solid state on a new computer. But it's all because it's of bloatware anyway. Because the thing I use over here, this thing.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
That G5 that goes back almost 20 years and doesn't have hardly that much memory on it at all. Like I didn't even know how much memory. Let's see here about this Mac. It's a dual 2 gigahertz PowerPC G5, and it's got 6 gigabytes of RAM, SD RAM. And let me see if it tells me. I don't even know the size of the hard drive. The hard drive says 11 items. I think I only have like 250 gigabytes on there. Total. I mean, I might have more than that. I might have a half a terabyte, but it might only be a quarter of a terabyte, That's where my sound effects come from. That's all I use that for now. Well, I have Photoshop and Illustrator, InDesign, and a couple of other programs on there. Clara's homepage. Old programs that won't run on the newer computers. Or they'll run on the newer computers if you pay the Creative Cloud of Adobe. The extortion fees, monthly extortion fees. But yeah, there's camera 2 up there. Camera 2 view. Not a lot of traffic at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm surprised. The streets are clear. I don't know. Considering the weather's going to be so cold, the coal trucks we're going to probably start seeing a lot of trucks going up this road. Because there are 2 coal-fired power plants, I don't know, 20 miles, within 10, 20 miles from here. But the trucks use my street, which is a neighborhood street, as a shortcut. There's another street that's about 5 streets over that's actually where they're coming from, it's actually a straight line. But they have to make a turn. There's a hill and a turn, and I guess they don't want to do it. And this is so they cut through here, and they've destroyed this street, literally. My house shakes sometimes. But sometime within the next hour, and I guess I'll, hopefully before the show ends, unless they end early, you'll see these trucks barrel-assing up here. It's a neighborhood street, 25 miles an hour, but you'll see these coal trucks going. Vroom. Like I say, if you have a Tesla or a hybrid car and you live somewhere, in the northern latitudes, chances are, you're getting, here's something. There's one. See that? Look. See them up there? They're going 25 miles an hour. And that's why I have camera 2 view up there. But your car is running on fracked gas and coal. So these people, hey, look at me. I just bought a Tesla. Aren't I green, right? I got a Chevy Volt. Aren't I green? Of course, I think they recalled the Chevy Volts or something like that. Do they still make Priuses? I remember driving in a Prius, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. But the point is, in certain parts of the country, you're driving on, whether you like it or not, what you call fossil fuels. Because how do you think those batteries are charged, for crying out loud? I mean, unless you're literally located next to some kind of solar farm or one of those bird killing giant windmill things that break down and only last so long, and nobody wants to fix them, right? Or maybe if you're next to a hydroelectric dam or something. Other than that, forget it. And then it's going to be what did I say? -6 degrees. Let me double check this while I'm talking to you. Yeah. Friday night, it's going to be -6. Thursday, it's going to be -1 overnight. Throughout the weekend, it's going to be like the night overnights are 12 degrees. The highs in the days are like 19 or 20s. And you watch when February comes around, they'll say January was one of the warmest January on record. These IPCC, climate people. And it's like, man, it's gotten so ridiculous that it's like you don't even I don't know. The only thing you could really do, I guess, is just
really funny.
Is laugh at them, right? I mean, it's yeah. It's like the whole people in power right now, and this, you're just laughing at them. And then the other thing is like watching all these people walking around. I've got let's see if I can get out of the way with this chair. Yeah, there's my guy back there. If I get back here. The guy with the shades. That mask says everything you know is wrong. And of course, next to him is the 3D game over droid. Right? And directly behind me on top of that radio is a VR headset, which are very uncomfortable to wear and kind of like, I don't know. That's one of those things. I think those things like Oculus and stuff are going, and there's people who would disagree with me on this, but there were people that disagreed with what I'm about to say too. They are the beta max, all right? Right? Of what eventually would be replaced by VHS. Yeah, VR headsets are the beta max or the laser disc. Yeah. It was like cool technology, interesting, experience, the whole 9 yards. But it's not going to be the final outcome. People, don't want that. They're going to want to be half in the real world. Not totally, in other words, they don't want the ability. And I explained that in a different show, but I guess this year, I think, maybe these shows will have to be repetitive because of the viewership. People are going to want to just wear the Ray-Ban type of glasses that Zuckerberg bought out, by the way, or what Apple's rumored to be putting out. And that means, and if you've seen them and we've shown them on this show, they have cameras, speakers, okay, and they're Wi-Fi or Bluetooth enabled or something like that, so you can listen to your music. There's no wires or anything, so you can take video, take photos, listen to your playlists, take calls, like the last time I talked about it. So you're walking down the street wearing these glasses. You know, in the summertime, they could be sunglasses, but in the wintertime, they could just be these glasses, right? Or they could be like those that probably, and I'm sure they have them, you know, those ones that adjust for various lighting. And they wouldn't necessarily have these frames around them, so they would be fairly, you know, if you look at the trucks, see that? I told you, it happens every morning. This is the shortcut to the power plant. But what I'm saying is the whole northern part of the United States, with the temperatures being that cold, do you know how much coal they're going to burn? And there's no way possible within decades, and decades that any kind of like bird-killing white fans that ruined all the landscapes along the highways and stuff, or some kind, or if you can't even find places to put solar farms in the northern parts. And we don't get enough sun up here to produce, right? That's going to heat a house when it's 12 degrees or minus 6 degrees outside. So this is like a fool's errand. This is just another big, fat lie. Everything you know is wrong. You know, they're lying to us. You know, it's to the point of like, you know, come on. But I'm over that. I don't even get upset about it every more. I just report on it. You know, it's like, yeah, they're lying to us. They're lying. You know? Like Canada, they're at least, you know, they're burning wood. The forest. In some places, they're outlawing like wood stoves. Like you can't even buy wood stoves. I mean, it's not almost as if. It is as if. They want us dead. Right? You know? In other words, we're going to freeze to death. You know, they close down these pipelines, you know, stop, you know, exploration, you know, put a halt to like, you know, stuff that was in the pipeline, pun intended, and are pushing all of these things. The price of gas, you know, oil's up to I think it's $80 a barrel. I think it was as low as $40 a barrel a couple of years ago. So its price has doubled. There's no reason to think it's not going to go over 100. Inflation is completely out of control. And it really hasn't set in yet. You know, it takes time. They're talking about raising interest rates. So all these people who got these like weird credit cards, like, you know, and all this stuff, you know, or student debt and everything else, and people who have loans that are variable interest rates, well, those things are going to like go shoot up. You know, I heard a guy yesterday talking. One of the few things that I do pay attention to is when I do listen, I'll listen to some financial news because it's like follow the money. So when you live in a corporatocracy, it's all about money. It's about the shareholders making money. Big Pharma, the only reason they're pushing this thing that everybody gets, you know what, 4 times is because they're making hundreds of billions of dollars on it. Because otherwise they would just be passing out these generic antiviral pills. Or like Trey said earlier, about, turmeric's an antiviral, right? And, and I eat garlic every day, which is an antiviral, by the way. And like I say, knock on wood, I don't know. I get these blood tests every so many months and all this, that, the other. And my blood work seems to be somewhat good. Though I've had problems because there's so much stuff out there. They're pushing at people. I mean, I hate to say that I'm watching, you know what I'm watching now? I got HBO Max subscription because I wanted to see the new Matrix thing. I got it like a couple of weeks ago. And so I kept it in January because I think they're going to bring, I think Westworld is coming back sometime within the next month or so. And even though it's expensive, and it is expensive, and a guy like me, I don't like to waste, it's like 15, almost $16 a month. Might not sound like a lot of money to you, but that's like it's pretty high, you know, when you take into consideration trying to have, if you have something like Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. Look at that truck going, man. Well, anyway, there's I just noticed I didn't just notice. I noticed they added Fringe 2 days ago. The television show Fringe from back in the 90s. It's got that girl Anna Torv on it. Man, I think she's gorgeous. And I've seen her in one or two other movies. She's an Australian. But she's got a body. Man, she's everything. She's it. I like shows where I could actually where the show is good, it's interesting, it's sci-fi, it's like into some wild shit, and there's eye candy on it to boot. You know, I mean, that's like the winning combination. And Fringe is that. It was a J.J. Abrams. You see how fast that truck just like zoomed by up there? Watch that camera. Put your finger, or watch where my finger is up here. And when you see those big trucks go there. This is a neighborhood. And that's an earthquake. That's me hitting that thing. But anyway, so I started to watch Fringe, and I haven't been doing any crazy binge watching or anything. But I'll watch an episode right before I go to sleep at night. And if for some reason I'm up early, up and upstairs early than usual, maybe I'll watch 2 episodes in a row. But that's as much. I'm not binging, like I've done for some shows where I've watched like 3, 4 in a row and stuff like that. And I watched the show when it was on, but I forgot it because it was a 90s. It was a show in the 90s. It's like going back to some of the X-Files. It's like if you watch an X-Files show, you kind of might remember certain things. But it's like, it's 25 years ago. You know what I mean? You're not storing, those shows. And this is the first season I'm watching right now, and I don't know. Maybe I didn't even see the first season. I might have not have picked on to, because there was something like 5 or 6 seasons of Fringe. There's a method to my madness here. It's going somewhere. All right. And so I might have only picked up watching the show on the 2nd or 3rd season. One thing good about Fringe, and it's not a spoiler alert, is that they end that series right, so it's worthwhile. It won't disappoint, though I'll tell you, I had to watch the last episode twice. Like, it was the second time I watched it, and there was time between it, that I really realized how well they put everything together. I watched like the last season a year later after the show ended. I had watched the last season again at a time. Fringe is that good a show. That was one of J.J. Abrams' first shows that he was directly involved in. He was like executive producer, but he actually wrote some of those episodes. J.J. Abrams, who was like, did the remakes of the Star Trek, one of the, he's the guy, Anyway, I'm watching Fringe, and I'm also thinking back of X-Files too, just in general. And this is what I want to talk about for the rest of the show. Is that, when you think about, this kind of stuff that used to be on network TV when people watched network TV, and even when cable TV was decent, when there literally was diversity, when the Sci-Fi Channel was the Sci-Fi Channel, right? When Discovery Channel was the Discovery Channel. I mean, now they have stuff on these channels because they're all owned by the same. There's like 5 companies own everything now. Okay, that's not a joke. And seriously, they own all the. It's like why have 200 channels if only 5 companies own them all. Consolidate already. It's ridiculous. But when getting back, if you're not familiar with Fringe, if you're not familiar, I think most people are familiar with the X-Files. I have Mulder's poster behind, everything's backwards. Let's see if I could do it. It's here. It's behind her on the wall. Okay. I want to believe poster. Now that's the garbage truck. And he just passed my house and didn't pick up my garbage. Why not? What's his problem? What the? What the heck? Didn't he see it? Man, I'll tell you, this town, sometimes I get annoyed. There was a garbage truck just went by and he just passed my house. And it's clear. I went out there intentionally and cleared my bags. Couldn't he see those bags? How far out in the street did I need to put them? Well, they'll be getting a phone call from me. Okay, so back to this thing. Back to this, craziness.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
That just took me aback. All right. So you probably know the X-Files because they had a couple movies and, it was pop culture. You might not be familiar with Fringe, okay? The thing about Fringe was this was like a special, they explored things that were like a little bit out there, not a little bit, but a lot out there. Crazy stuff. And like the X-Files, it was like they were tied in with like the FBI, these government agencies and stuff. So this is like a time when people were basically open to the idea that these government agencies, don't believe, everything is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. And, it's like the UFO phenomenon. Now they come out and say, UFOs are real, or we're tracking them and we're trying to figure out what they are. But back then it was like conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, woo-woo. All right. Well, if you watch like the X-Files and stuff, these shows that were produced by these people, the government didn't seem to have as much control over these people. And so, or something like that. I don't know how, but they were critical of, in fact, in other words, they were pointing conspiracies at the government, which, a quick aside, by the way, if anyone saw Mike Tyson's podcast or listened to his podcast with Robert Kennedy Jr. on there, where Robert Kennedy Jr. basically named who killed his dad, right? And talked about the JFK thing. It's like it was a mind blower. It should have been front page news, and the lead story on every network in America. Yeah, he basically implicated the CIA, and he named names. A name. Yeah, pretty crazy. And it's Kennedy, man. But anyway, so Fringe and the X-Files were like that, but Fringe was very interesting, and so if you're into sci-fi, if you're into fringe science, because a lot of their stuff is based on science. The thing about Fringe is that Fringe was more like the people that were involved in that, the writers, they were more aware of physics and and the science behind what the shows were doing. And even though the stuff was fringe science, and this was, that was the whole idea that these people, that it was, fantasy sci-fi in a sense, that they were, the foundation of what was being dealt with on that show was based in science. Okay. Whereas sometimes the X-Files was just far out, almost comical in some senses. But I love that show, and I like Mulder and, and Jillian, But anyway, be that as it may, people aren't like that today because, these shows were like a generation ago. So these people you see out in the streets, rioting, protesting, talking about this, that, the other, they think they don't understand. Like, somebody accidentally turns on this show and sees something up there that says, everything you know is wrong, game over, you don't know what you don't know. Like, what the heck? What kind of psycho? Who's that weird guy with all that stuff? What a geek, weirdo. Or something, right? Because they have no concept of like this country, like our culture of where we came from and how we questioned everything. And that was part of, being an American is to question everything. I mean, it's the foundation of science is to question everything, right? And now we're in a situation where these people are in lockstep, like, in this totalitarian state. And even though you've got these people here going like, we got to save America from the totalitarians, the idea is they don't understand save what? There is nothing left. So this is geography. This is like, like I always say, this is like Greece or Rome after the empires fell. You still have Greeks and you still have Romans. You still have the geographic country of Greek and you still have Rome and Italy, but you got ruins. Okay? The empires fell. Western civilization has already fallen. The Great Reset already happened. Okay? It happened like in 2020. And, and the U.S., this is the former United States. And you got to go back to these shows and stuff to see where our heads were before these people like took over, which it was like, it really became, it was the 90s when it really big time took over. I mean, they originally took over when they took out Kennedy. All right. And people don't want to hear that. But that was the idea because he was against it. He saw this. Remember, Eisenhower said in his final address, he warned that this was already happening. And he warned about that these people had too much power. Right. Kennedy came in and he continued that. He was going to try to dismantle it. And then they got rid of him. Right. And like what a lot of people don't know, we just passed MLK Jr. Day, is that, all the stuff they did, they have a building. The FBI has a building named after Hoover, who was one of the most corrupt guys like in history. And that's their building, still named after him. They should be chiseling that name off of there. Well, Hoover was like totally, Bobby Kennedy was totally against Hoover. Hoover hated him, but Hoover was doing all kinds of really nasty things to MLK Jr. All right. And but MLK Jr. was okay for the longest time. But once MLK Jr. started to go up against the military industrial complex, his movement he was starting to give anti-war speeches. They took him out. They took him out. All right. So the point of the matter is, in the late 50s, early 60s, the corporatocracy was starting to seize power in the U.S. This is true history of America that you haven't been taught. Eisenhower warned about it in his speech. Okay, we have it here. I haven't played this since last year. And I know I have it. And I think I renamed it Eisenhower so that I wouldn't have to do this. I hate when I have to do this constantly. You know, I've got Roosevelt. Come on. I hate nothing worse than I hate wasting time on a show. I have to do this now because now I built it up, so I have to do it, right? Show current. Let's see. Eisenhower. Okay.
This evening, I come to you with a message of...
I'm going to fast forward to the spot.
We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
And you know, for years when people used to say military-industrial complex, they used to call you conspiracy theory. All right. That's Dwight David Eisenhower, and I think most YouTubers by now know that was his farewell speech. And then Kennedy came on and gave similar speeches, and he was against this. He wanted to disband the CIA, and they got rid of him. And Bobby Kennedy, according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was killed by CIA. So that was the rise of the corporatocracy. And the military-industrial complex was only one part of it. All right? And then you had building up, right? Big pharma, right? And back then, you know, you had because they didn't have total control. Like AT&T was a big monopoly back in those days, you know, a little bit further forward. But they managed to break up. There were still people, you know, we still had a government, all right? And there were still enough people in, you know, government that they broke up AT&T into the baby bells. They broke up the monopoly. So that was a hit. That was a major blow against, you know, the corporatocracy that was like just burgeoning. It was building itself up. But, you know, by the time the 80s came in, you know, that's when the corporatocracy took total control. And, you know, when they got rid of the savings and loans, right? And they started the consolidation. And so it was big banking, right? And that was big pharma, right? The military industrial complex. And you had cable TV come in, right? And big ag. And then by the late, you know, and then big tech. Because remember, big tech, you know, the Apple commercial, the TV commercial, the 1984 commercial. You know, I have, you can't see it. It's over, well, it's behind it's over this way. It is the weirdest thing if you're a YouTuber and you do this kind of stuff, if you use these programs. See, I could see myself right side, but normally you can't. Anyway, over here behind this is the first Mac, which I bought in 1985 and used. And it was on the internet. So I was on the internet in 1985 with a 300 baud modem. All right, talking to people in Australia and stuff like that. Okay. But anyway, that's when big tech started. All right, and joined the corporatocracy. And so by the 90s, as the 90s progressed, big tech, or the big what I call corporatocracy, started to seize complete control and started to get its tentacles in every aspect of government. And now what we have, we are this is a corporatocracy. It's a corporatocracy. It's not a government. It's not a constitutional republic or any of that stuff, right? And people don't understand that, and they don't see it, and they don't realize it. It's weird. It's bizarre. But they've got, they've had generations to teach revisionist history. The government's become a nanny state. It's been raising people, from, like daycare, nursery school to kindergarten, basically from cradle to grave, It's like, it's indoctrination, it's conditioning, and then it's propaganda. It's like people don't stand a chance, man. They're just bombarded. So that's why I say everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. It's like, it's ridiculous. And there's always been some of us who've been either are immune somehow to their programming or to what they're doing, or have been so busy doing things that we didn't pay attention to, weren't paying attention to them. Like I wasn't watching TV, in the 80s and stuff. I wasn't watching TV a lot even in the 90s. I don't even have TV now. If I need to watch TV, I have access to television through one of those over-the-air things. Or I found out, I said this before, Fire TV, if you just click on your voice control thing, you get a thing that pops up and it gives you the weather and like media or something weird like that. And you can select and get live local channels on there. It's very interesting. They don't publish that or push that much, but you can do that. So it's like free TV. If you wanted it. I don't want it. I don't care. I put it on the other day because I was curious about the snow, right? Though I have a weather radio. So I listen to the National Weather Service. So that's the world we live in right now. And it's interesting how I've gone from, talking about, a 1991 paper that's on the NIH website talking about something that shrinks gallstones to, how the corporatocracy has taken over and the absurdity of people still believing in politics and politicians and watching the media. The only way to defeat the media is to not watch them. They will vanish within a year to 18 months. And the only way to defeat the politicians isn't to vote for somebody else. Is to not vote. Is to just ignore them and not pay attention to them. And move out of the areas where where they have their fiefdoms. There are certain locations in this country that are still run like totalitarian states, where they have fiefdoms. See, where I live, the government is like, you don't really interact with them. The federal government and even the state government. You got to move to like the outskirts of town and stuff like that. That people don't understand. You don't have to be a homesteader. You don't have to live in the boondocks or anything like that. But you just got to get out. You can't live in these places that these people have this centralized power and control and rule over you. You have to ignore them and get away from them. And then they vanish. Their power. See, in other words, the corporatocracy is only as strong as long as it can wield influence over the media and politicians to implement their policies. Right? It's like a guy was saying yesterday on, like, I don't know, it might have been a Tim Pool show or something I was watching. I think he alluded to it at least. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. But it was the idea is that if you don't use Twitter, then Twitter has no, then what's the big deal? You know what I mean? There's no power. They have no power over you. They can't censor you if you don't use them. You see? And if more and more people would do that, they would realize, and there's other things to do besides that. Right? And I think it was Poole or somebody said they turned their notifications off. If you turn your notifications off, you're not going to get annoyed by seeing some notification on your smartphone that's going to piss you off. So I always say this, and I always end the shows with this stuff, is that you have the power. You know, freedom is fun, and you're the master of your own destiny, and you just need to wake up to it. I mean, what is this? This might as well be a church service or some kind of, what is this? Or a cult of something. Like I said yesterday, I said, I'm waiting for Abraham Lincoln to come out in a stovetop hat. This is something you'd expect to see 60 years ago. Right? Not in the year 2022. What do they think they're going to do? What's that sign say? They're guys trying to sell a book too or something? No. You basically ignore these people. You ignore politics. And that way, in other words, excuse me. When you donate to a politician, the money goes to advertisements. And those advertisements go on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you don't donate to a politician, guess what? CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, they don't get their funding. They don't get commercials. So who funds them? Well, the military-industrial complex and Big Pharma put ads on there to try to get them to get their message out, or so that they don't do stories against them. But when they find out, like in CNN, that they lost 90% of their audience and there's only 100,000 people watching, after about a year or so, even the military-industrial complex won't bother even putting any money on them. In other words, they're gone, right? They're gone, And I don't, and guys like Hannity and stuff like that, these guys are getting old. I'm sure that guy, I don't know if he wears a wig or he doesn't wear a wig or whatever, but they've good makeup jobs, a lot of these people. But I mean, take a look around. Biden's barely going to make it through his presidency. Bush is no spring chicken. Nancy Pelosi, man, I don't know how they're keeping her going. And the same goes with all those other old timers in Congress and some of these old senators. Right? They're not going to be around that long. All right? It's called attrition, They just can't do it. And they're already slipping up, and they're just going to keep slipping up so much till it becomes so obvious, even to their own supporters, that people are going to say, hey, look, man, you got to retire or get out of here. We're not voting you back in. And then the corporatocracy will no longer be supporting their campaigns because they can't, in other words, they're not going to donate money to somebody who has no influence. So if the media no longer has an audience, they're not going to donate money to that or prop them up. And if politicians no longer have any influence anybody, they're not going to prop them up. So what happens? People say, well, then what happens, duh? Well, what happens is, this is the answer. Okay? I'm the man with the plan. You stay tuned long enough. Now you're going to hear it. Ignore the politicians, disconnect from the media, don't watch the media, don't donate to politicians, and don't vote, and get away from them. Just ignore them. Ignore their stupid mandates and their crazy crap. All right? Here's what happens. Big tech goes back to focusing on technology. Big ag goes back to focusing on health. It's like that NIH article I started this thing in. Maybe they will put out this thing that dissolves gallstones. Okay? Big ag might focus on making food that actually doesn't, according to the CDC, the average lifespan in the U.S. dropped by about 2 years, like going into 2020. That's before this thing. It's, all right? The military-industrial complex might start realizing that there's no support for these foreign wars. See, they're trying to put this big war together right now, all right, in Ukraine. That's one of their things. There's that garbage truck. It better fucking pull over and pick up my garbage. I'm half tempted to go out there and try to flag them down. Man, what the? And so, yeah, and that's that. And that's the end of it. And so what happens is, well, the government, when I say former United States, well, the Constitution still exists. All right. So then we go back, And so the Great Reset kind of backfires. And in effect, in about 10 years, there is a reset and we're back to normal. And that's the plan. And that's the plan you should be following. You see? In other words, the Great Reset's going to backfire. And we're going to reset back to a constitutional republic. Right? Where the media and the politicians no longer have this control and the corporatocracy is no longer, pulling the strings of them because they don't have the power, and the corporatocracy then focuses on what their bylaws tell them to focus on is increasing the profits of their shareholders. But in between this whole craziness that's going to happen is we're going to see a financial collapse and some hard times. And that's what's facing us. Accept it. Deal with it. I hope I made that point clear to you. All right? We'll continue this discussion. I'm going to try to go outside and see if I can flag down that garbage truck. Otherwise, I have to get in the phone.
Good morning.
Anyway, go to TonyCaravanLive.com, ROCKFLUX.com. There's all my stuff. Look at books, great solar stuff, hoodies, shirts, all kinds of stuff. Get them. All right? And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.